Welcome to Ray Reads, a podcast where I talk about the books I'm currently reading like I'm in a sad little one-man book club. For this episode of Ray Reads, I will be discussing Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. So, I get that this book is ultimately about the Great Red Dragon, but I honestly wish for more from Hannibal Lecter, as this is the Hannibal series we're talking about here. In this book, Hannibal is caged within the Baltimore State Hospital for the criminally insane. So, when Will Graham realizes that he needs to rely on Hannibal, the monster he himself caught, for help to solve this new Tooth Fairy case, I thought there would be more scenes with Will and Hannibal discussing the murders. Will consulted Hannibal once, and then did not speak to the cannibal again for the rest of the book. Not even when Hannibal gave the Red Dragon Will's home address and put Will's family in danger. I mean, Hannibal Lecter does not have to be the main character, but I do want for him to have a greater involvement in the story than this. Will's relationship with Hannibal fascinates me. As much as Will is repulsed by the cannibal, he is also greatly drawn to him. They are two sides of the same coin, Hannibal claims. Hannibal, of course, wants to maintain his relationship with Will. When Hannibal handed out Will's address, he did so out of pettiness in reaction to Will's rudeness during his visit. Once he's done that and gotten even, Hannibal writes a letter to Will congratulating him on the brutal death of the reporter Freddie Lowndes. Freddie Lowndes is one of the most annoying characters I have ever come across. Frankly, he should have been locked up in jail a long time ago. What kind of person calls the FBI pretending to be a serial killer just for a news story? If only he had been arrested then, he might have escaped his fate in the Red Dragon's hands. The Red Dragon is an interesting killer, though I would never say he's as interesting as Hannibal Lecter. Digging deeper into the past of Francis Dolarhyde, you can only feel pity for this abused child. He was abandoned as an infant and bullied all his life because he was born disfigured. His grandmother only took him in so that she could use him to get back at his mother, who is also her daughter. On the surface, the grandmother seems like a kind old lady who cares for the elderly and her poor grandson. She was a selfish and vicious woman. It's almost no wonder why Dolarhyde turned out the way he did. Not to say that any of this excuses his actions, of course. The Red Dragon feeds on Dolarhyde's insecurities. The Red Dragon is supposed to be a magnificent being, a thing of pure glory. It is difficult to see its majesty the way that Dolarhyde does, however. Dolarhyde claims that the Red Dragon is superior to all, that humans are insignificant in comparison and unworthy of its attention. In reality, I am more inclined to think that the Red Dragon is a petty monster. When Dolarhyde encounters those hot but snobby women in traffic, he says he is unbothered by them now, as his confidence is bolstered thanks to his becoming. Yet, in opposition of what he's thinking here, Dolarhyde proceeds to roll down his window and literally spit on the woman. So classy. It totally conveys his becoming dignity. He just tries so hard to think of the Red Dragon as a dignified superior, but it isn't. I mean, he struts around in a cheap kimono, and his calling card is a mahjong symbol. A little bit of cultural appropriation, but we're not going to talk about that, I guess. Despite how he has been inspired by a work of art, the Red Dragon is artless. Dolarhyde and the Red Dragon start out as a single personality almost, with Dolarhyde submitting to and becoming the greater being. But once he falls for Reba McClane, a fracture separates him into two identities at war. I do not really enjoy the love story here because of how fast it moves, but I will say that I did enjoy reading about Reba as a blind person. I think this is the first blind character that I have read about who is not a witch or some other blind cliche. Reba provides realistic representation, and it is so refreshing. Reba is very self-aware and touches on several issues that a blind person faces. She is so fiercely independent and confident. I just love her. Will Graham is still my favorite, though. As I read this book, I pictured Hugh Dancy, aka Prince Charmant, from the TV show as Will. With Hannibal, I sometimes see him as Anthony Hopkins, and other times I see Mads Mikkelsen. But Hugh Dancy will always be my Will Graham. He played his character wonderfully. And I much prefer Will Graham to Clarice Starling. I mean, Starling is great and all, but I love Will and his dynamic with Hannibal more. And even without Hannibal, Will is so interesting and tragic. Very few people understand him. Jack Crawford does not understand him, but he knows Will is the best. He takes advantage and guilt trips Will into working with him again. Jack Crawford promises that Will not get hurt this time. This is a vow outside of his control. The way that Will analyzes and understands these monsters, these monstrous killers, is a form of mental torture which he cannot escape. He thinks best when he is afraid, Will claims. It is so sad to watch Will unravel as he fights to solve this case. The distance between Will and his wife Molly grows emotionally and physically. All Will wants is to fish and be with his family. It breaks my heart to observe how he loses the things most important to him, all because Jack Crawford pushed him back into working with the FBI. My boy Will deserves peace, but it seems unlikely that he'll ever have his own happy ending. All in all, I really enjoyed this book. I've been reading this series all out of order, but I am loving every second of it. If you haven't already seen the Hannibal TV show, then I strongly suggest that you watch it right now. It is one of my all-time favorite shows, and it represents this book beautifully. I need to get my hands on the book Hannibal Rising as soon as possible. Even though I have not finished reading this series yet, I really do wish that it had more than 4 books to it. This book series is just so wonderful to me.